What is going on, my fellow nerds? OperatorOtter here. Vessel of Hatred releases today, and I want to be able to provide for you an in-depth leveling guide for the Spiritborn. Now, we're going to be utilizing the Quill Volley build because that seems to be the most efficient build that the Spiritborns have for leveling, and it's still a top contender for S-tier build in the endgame, so you can actually utilize this throughout the entire season. In this guide, we're going to be talking about the actual leveling route instructions, as well as how the build functions, and then how we're going to staircase it from the very start when you enter the game for the season, all the way into the endgame. So, without further ado, let's get started. In the link in the description below is going to be a Google Docs link that is going to bring you to this page. And on the bottom there are some tabs. This is the welcome page, then you have the leveling route instructions, and the actual Spiritborn guide itself. We'll be going through that. Now, the Quill Volley build that we're going to be utilizing is actually going to be coming from Goblin Incorporated, specifically from AceofSpades, who had early access to the Spiritborn, and he was able to make a fantastic guide on the actual build itself, and it goes into very in detail depth about how the build functions. So we're not going to do that. We're not going to go in detail because Ace has already covered it and he's already knocked it out of the park. So we're going to let him do that. I'm going to give you the nuts and bolts about how the build functions. But what this guide is going to be doing is really going into more detail about the actual staircasing mechanics of how we're actually going to build from like one point to the next point, and then into the Paragon as well. There's going to be a lot more detail into how to actually staircase that. So let's talk about the Quill Volley build and like how it's actually functioning on a nuts and bolts level. The primary skill that we're going to use to deal damage is going to be Quill Volley. Now, Quill Volley is basically just reverse Bone Spear. Essentially, instead of you doing a sniper bolt out and then it spreads out, it's going to spread out from you, and then with this aspect, it's going to then explode at the apex and then return back to you. Now, what that means is that you actually do the most damage when you're actually doing a shotgun mechanic being right next to your target, because all of the Quill Volleys are going to spread out, and then they're all going to return right back on top of you. So you're kind of having this reverse Bone Spear mechanic, which is pretty cool. Now, the next thing that's happening here is we're going to be using this aspect of unyielding hits, which means that when you cast a gorilla skill, it's going to increase your weapon damage by 45% of your armor. In our primary haul choice, we're going to be choosing gorilla. This is going to turn all of our skills gorilla, which means that though Quill Volley is an eagle skill, it is also now a gorilla skill. And that means that when we deal damage with it, it's going to turn this aspect online. Now, this build is going to be stacking as much armor as possible, and when you get to a point of about 4,500 armor, and that's pretty basic, we're going to be able to get our armor up above 10,000 with this build, but once you get to about 4,500, with Disobedience, you're going to be able to get to a point where this aspect actually gives you roughly 600% multiplicative damage, which is about the same value that we got from a Greater Affix Conjuration Mastery triple crit from Fractured Winterglass for the Lightning Spear Sorc last season. So this is a very, very powerful aspect that most Spiritborns are going to be utilizing, and very, very good. Now, the next point of this is that we're going to be using aspect of the Redirected Force, which means that we're going to be gaining critical strike damage equal to 70% of our block chance, and that is multiplicative. And if we do block something, then this bonus is going to double for 10 seconds, meaning that for 10 seconds we have 140% multiplier. So how do we actually block things, and how do we have 100% block chance? Well, with Armored Hide, when we activate it, we actually gain 100% block chance for 4.2 seconds, and that's what's allowing that to happen, and then when we block, that effect goes into play. Now, the thing is that this skill has a 25-second cooldown, so how do we actually keep this up and keep going with it? Well, we're going to be using a key passive called Prodigy's Tempo, and the second part of this states that every third consecutive cast of the same core or potency skill reduces all skills' active cooldowns by 10%, increased by 2% for each of their skill ranks. Now, because Armored Hide has 5 points into it, this means that this is actually a 20% cooldown reduction modifier for every third cast of Quill Volley, because Quill Volley is a core skill. How convenient. That's how we're going to be able to actually upkeep not only just Armored Hide, but all of our abilities. This is going to be a total reset mechanic that is going to allow us to just permanently soar, permanently vortex. We're going to permanently have good healing from Scourge. We're going to be able to keep our Hunter up all the time, which is going to maximize our ferocity stacks. We're going to be having all sorts of stuff that's going to really allow this build to function because of Prodigy's Tempo. Now, one of the cooler interactions for Spiritborn is going to be between the Rod of Kepaleki and the Ring of Midnight Sun. Rod of Kepaleki on the first part of the intrinsic states that all of your core skills are now basic skills, which is pretty cool because now we can roll for basic skill ranks in our pants, as well as basic skill damage in our temperings, and it will affect Quill Volley because Quill Volley, though it's a core skill, is now a basic skill, so that's pretty cool. The second part of the intrinsic is where the real power is. It states that when cast at maximum vigor, your core skills consume all of your vigor, like Bone Spirit, to become a guaranteed critical strike, and this damage is going to be increased by 3% for every point point of vigor consumed in this manner. And you have about 150 vigor, which means this becomes a 400 to 450% damage modifier. Now, obviously, that's extremely powerful, and we want to keep doing that. So how do we do that? Well, with Ring of Midnight Sun, when you critically strike, which is guaranteed with Rod of Kepaleki, you are going to regain 50% of the vigor you spent in the last 2 seconds. Well, you just consumed 100% of your vigor, so you just instantly regen 50% of it. But then, with Measured Ravager, that resource generation is going to be multiplied by another 30%, and then with Vigorous, it'll be multiplied by another 15%, and with Velocity, you're going to be gaining vigor just per second because that's how that functions. And then you also have a resource generation temper in your ring. This all equates to as soon as you cast Quill Volley and you consume all of your vigor, you're instantly going to refill your entire resource pool so that you can then on your next cast of Quill Volley actually activate Rod of Kepaleki again, meaning that you now have permanent uptime on Rod of Kepaleki's secondary effect, which is a 450% damage multiplier. And then even better, one of the actual affixes of the piece of the gear is the chance for core skills to hit twice, and the second hit that actually comes out from Rod of Kepaleki is still under the effect of the second part of Rod of Kepaleki, so you're actually getting a 900% damage modifier with this item, which is absolutely bonkers and why Quill Volley is so strong for leveling. Last little cool interaction for this build is going to be the Harmony of Ebawaka Helm. Now, the first part says, according to your secondary spirit hall choice, your skills are additionally some type of skill. Now, the primary one states that all of your skills are going to become whatever you choose. So if you choose Centipede, all of your skills are Centipede. If you choose Gorilla, all of your skills are Gorilla. Now, we've chosen Gorilla, so our Quill Volley is now an Eagle skill, and it's a Gorilla skill. But what Harmony of Ebawaka states is that your secondary hall choice now also makes your skills all of what your secondary hall choice is. So Jaguar in our second does not make all of our skills Jaguar, but with Harmony of Ebawaka, it does. So now we have Quill Volley doing Eagle, Jaguar, and Gorilla. So it's got 3 different types of spirit damage. And now what it says is your skills deal 30% increased damage per spirit type they have, which is a 90% damage modifier. So Harmony of Ebawaka is a very good helm. It also gives a nice part of damage reduction and ranks to velocity, which is going to help us with that vigor generation for keeping up Rod of Kepaleki's effect. Really good helm, right? Now, the last part I want to talk about is how we're going to hit our resist caps. Pretty easily. We're already stacking so much armor in this build, and armor is actually giving us damage, so we're knocking out 2 birds with 1 stone on that. And then for the boots, we just run Ragnaroth Wakes, or for the chest, we can run Tyrael's, whatever you decide to do. I think Ragnaroth's is better, but whatever you as the player have at that moment, you run those. Either Ragnaroth's Wake, Yen's Blessing, or Tyrael's Might. One of those 3 items you're going to be running. That will give you enough resistance to all elements to actually be capped, and you're going to be good to go. You do not need to worry about anything in Torment 4, and you can just stay nice, healthy, and defensive. And that is the nuts and bolts of how this build functions. Now, AceofSpades in this video goes into much more detail about a lot of other things like your ferocity stacks, your resolve stacks, why resolve stacks are really important, how Gorilla's Thorn damage is actually going to be converting into damage, why Scourge and keeping healing is really important, how we're actually going to use our Rune Wards to upkeep Vortex, how we're going to upkeep our Soar, just a lot of other things like what Ferocity is actually doing and certain breakpoints and stuff like that. So if you are interested in more of the in detail things than just the nuts and bolts, I would highly suggest to go watch AceofSpades video on this, which is right here. I'll leave that in a link in the description below. But from here, now what we're going to talk about is how we're actually going to level this build now that we understand what it's actually doing. So on that Google Doc sheet and link in the description below, we're going to go to the next tab, which is going to be the leveling route instructions, which is going to be courtesy of Roost Crews and AceofSpades again. They are just knocking it out of the park this season. Really good work, guys. Keep doing everything. Already got written down. I paid attention to a lot of the other content creators, and I agree this is the best way to level up for this season. So what we're going to do is we're going to start on normal difficulty. I would not just suggest hard. Rudijo tried a hard for his class quest and could not complete it at level 20, so I would not suggest that. So we'll go into normal, and then you're going to level to 20 in the Helltide. You'll do your class quest, and then you'll complete the Vessel of Hatred campaign. This should get you to level 60, but if not, just go ahead and complete a Stronghold, and that should get you to level 60 fairly quickly. From here, you're going to go into your Torment levels 1 through 3, and the Torment 4, the game loop is exactly the same, but what's happening with Torment levels is that the higher Torment level that you have, you're going to have an increased rate at which the gear drops. The quality is going to be the same, but you're going to get more gear for less time investment the higher Torments you go. So that's why we're trying to really get into higher Torments. And the way that we're going to do that is be doing pits. So the higher pit levels you have, that's going to unlock your torment levels, but it's also going to upgrade your glyphs, which are a very powerful glyph power source, I should say. So we use the pits to level up our glyphs and to level up our torments. We're going to be using the hordes to actually get our Paragon XP really high. So if you get a compass from any activity, use that. That'll level you up really fast. We're using the Nightmare Dungeon to get our boss materials and our masterworking materials. And then we're using the Undercity for the tributes that are going to give us the boss materials and the legendaries. And then with the boss materials, we can get our mythics and the legendaries that we're specifically trying to farm. And this is going to be kind of the game loop between these 4 activities, even through all the way to Torment 4 to kind of end game it for Season 6, which is really good. How long should we expect this to take? Well, courtesy of Rob has kind of already done that for us. If you are a blaster, and by blaster I mean you're doing everything at 100% efficiency, you're not taking breaks, I mean you got the bottle for going to the bathroom, if you know what I'm saying. So if you're that type of player, this is how long it should take for you at pretty much every benchmark that's labeled here and how long each of those time segments could take. If you're more of a chill player, you're going to be taking breaks and enjoying the game a little bit more and taking your time and just kind of enjoying the atmosphere and chilling with the boys. I should expect this to be about how long. So we got about 90 to 140 hours of gameplay to reach Paragon 300, which is really awesome. And they also did actually change a lot of the Paragon boards and the scaling with the actual main stat. So that actually gives Paragon boards a lot more value as you're leveling them up. So this is a very welcome change. So with that, that should answer some questions there. But now we're going to go into the actual Spiritborn leveling guide itself and go and start talking about stuff from there. So in that Google Docs link, the next tab, this is going to be the actual Spiritborn leveling guide for Quill Volley. So we're going to start here on this link. This is going to give you your skill leveling path. To open this up, you'll go to skill tree and it's just got the full leveling path for your skills right here. Should be easy, nothing that you need to do crazy. It's a pretty simple thing. Just remember that 2 through 11 is going to be your starter points. When you enter the game, you'll have those 10 points from Renown and you can spend those 10 points accordingly right here. All right, from there, we're going to go into the actual thing that you're going to do before you actually enter into hard or expert, which are going to be the aspects that you need. So you're going to be playing on normal until you get these 3 aspects, which is going to be disobedience, rebounding, and the unyielding hits aspect. If you get these 3 aspects, the build is on a functional state. You can actually go into a harder difficulty and get more XP and gold from that. So just try to pay attention for those aspects. Those are the 3 things that really make the build function. From there, we're going to go into the gear before 70 or Torment 1. This is the gear that you want before you're able to actually get to, when you complete the Vessel of Hatred campaign. This is what you're trying to do. So you're trying to get those 3 same ones, but you're also trying to get Juggernaut and the aspect of haste, which is going to make you go fast. Just remember that when it comes to these legendary effects for your jewelry, just keep those effects in your jewelry for the entire time. You're not going to be getting a lot of increases of power for higher item levels of your jewelry. Really what you want to pay attention to for your higher item levels is going to be your weapon and your armor. Your armor is going to literally give you more armor the higher item level it is, which is going to be very powerful for this build. But at the same time, the weapon is literally just giving you damage. So you really just want to switch on the highest item level stuff for your weapon and for your actual gear right here. But for your jewelry pieces, just put those 3 aspects in and keep them in. Because it's very expensive to keep swapping in the aspects in and out. So just keep those in and then go ahead and put some skulls in. That'll give you some good damage and you'll be good to go. The next part from here is going to be the mid game. So in this planner, we have all of the basically God gear. This is your ancestral stuff, but what I have done here is I have not triple crit anything because I don't assume that you're going to have all of this being able to be triple crit. But it does have all of the gear and all of the rolls that you want here for those pieces of gear. The thing I want to talk about is going to be the Paragon board. So usually with Paragon boards, this is kind of something I see from most guides that I don't really like, which is they just give you this board and they go, this is the board, good luck, have fun. The problem is that you don't know where to split in certain parts. So like if you get to right here, this is your fork, you can go get your glyph, you can get your legendary node, or you can get this rare node. And you don't really know what to grab because it doesn't really give you that leveling path. Well, in the bottom left-hand corner right here, I'm going to show on the bottom left-hand corner is going to be an entire leveling guide, which is going to tell you what level and what glyph you're going to start at. So you click this one, this is what your starter board is going to be. And then you go to your next one, you're going to go for Viscous Shield, which is going to be that legendary node. And the next one, you're going to go for Canny, which is the glyph. And it just takes you through the entire leveling process all the way up to level 200. So that should be really nice for you guys to be able to have an optimal board leveling path. So I hope that helps out there. Lastly, we have the actual end game build. So this is going to have all your triple crits. It's going to have triple crits in like every single piece of gear that you're trying to do because there are some very powerful ones. As well, the Paragon board is going to be the same thing. We have a 200 to a 300 Paragon board, so you just kind of follow suit with that, and that's going to give you your end game for Quill Volley. And Quill Volley is going to be very, very powerful. Like I said, top 3 build for Spiritborn for sure. Definitely going to be a fun build to play. So that's basically the leveling guild to the Spiritborn. And I hope that this was able to give you some good information on how to actually level as optimally as possible going into Season 6. That's all I have for you guys. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give me a like. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. I'd love to be able to talk to you. If you really want to stay tuned for more future content, because there will be much more future content on the Spiritborn and the Necro. Necro's looking really good this season. I gotta play Spiritborn because it's a new thing, but I'm a Necromancer main at heart, and Necro's looking really hot this season, so I'm very excited to try that about halfway through the season. Then you can go ahead and subscribe, and I'll be able to put out some more content, and you'll be able to get a notification for that. I will be streaming tomorrow, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for 24 hours. So if you want to come in and support me or have any questions that you have, you can ask me there directly. I love being able to communicate with you guys and talk about anything. So I hope to see you there. Other than that, enjoy your Vessel of Hatred start and have a blast. The game looks really, really fun. And I'm looking forward to it. That's all I have for you. Operator Otter,